it's Allison.
I'm Billy from Finding Fresh Air.
Today we're going to be installing our panel bed window that we ordered through RB Components.
Yeah, full disclaimer, as we say in all our videos, if you're new to this channel, we're not professionals. We're just DIYers getting a bunch of information from a bunch of different sources online. So hopefully this video could help you gather some information and make a informed decision and help you along the process with installing the same type of window. We're doing this in a 2018 Mercedes Sprinter van, and it's an Hehr window, which is how the guys at RB Components said to pronounce it. H-E-H-R is the how you spell that, Hehr. And it's about 10 inches by 36 inches, and we did get started on a little bit of the process already.
So in order to prep, throughout the week, we made this spacer ring, and we also painted it a glossy black to keep the moisture out and just seal it up a bit. Yeah,
so we'll show you guys a little bit more of a close-up of that and the window parts and everything that came with it. We also ordered the trim ring, which is a little bit expensive, and it's for a later video, but it's in order to create a nice flush trim mount for the window to connect to the wall. We're not going to be doing that today because that's when we install the walls, but we'll show you guys all those parts and we'll get started on the process. In order to get prepared for this, besides the spacer ring, we also removed the rattle trap that we already installed in that section. When we first started, we weren't really sure if we were gonna put a window there, but having camped in it a couple of times now and just kind of tested it out, we decided to put the window in. So we had to just remove a little bit of rattle trap that we put in. It was kind of annoying, but Allison took the lead on that and she was really good at it. I don't have the patience for stuff like that most times, so Allison took it away. And also when Allison did this with me, that was her first time using a drill and a jigsaw. And I honestly had no idea. What'd you think?
Oh, it was great. A lot of fun.
It's easy, but I had no idea she never used a drill or a jigsaw. So we had a little fun doing that. And safety first, don't forget, use your glasses, gloves, ear protection, whatever you need to get the job done. So let's get started. We'll take you guys through the process. So the parts that came with the Hehr window from RB Components consist really of 3 different things. Really, it's a set of screws. I think it's 15 that go in here. It's the clamp ring, which this is the part that goes on the inside of the van, and the window itself, which obviously gets installed on the outside of the van. The clamp ring then clamps everything down. We will be using some butyl tape here on the outside of the window to seal that up from the elements. And that's pretty much it that comes with the window. They do sell 2 different windows for the passenger side or the driver's side, because obviously you want the air and moisture to go in one direction. So it doesn't just enter the van through these cracks, it'll go the other way. So we got the one for the passenger side, we're going to be installing that today. We also ordered the trim ring, but that's for a later date when we install the doors. But just to show you guys that, this is the trim ring. They ship it with the internal piece still attached because they say it's stronger in shipment and won't break. They were having some problems with when it's just the ring around here with it breaking in shipment. So they leave this in and we just make some cuts to get that out of there. And this is to make a flush like window mount on the inside. So it's like a flush mount around the window connected to the wall. If not, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of expensive of a part, but it probably would have taken us quite a bit of time to make one ourselves. So we decided to cut some of that time out and buy that. The other piece that Allison talked about, we'll show you a little more close up, is the spacer ring, which was made out of 1/4 inch plywood. We'll show you guys we'll cut away to a couple of shots right now of us making that. But really we just place the window itself down on the plywood, trace it with a Sharpie, and cut this internal section out. And then the thickness of it was about 1 inch. We just measured all the way around and cut that again with the jigsaw, sanded it just a little bit, and sealed it up, painted it black like Allison said. We didn't really do that for looks. We're never gonna see this once we clamp it between the window and the clamp ring and the sheet metal of the van, but it's just to keep out the some moisture and seal up the wood a little bit instead of having that raw piece of wood in there. So yeah, now we're just gonna get started with our template. We made a template. Actually, a really easy way to do that is after you make this trim ring, put this down on a piece of cardboard, another Sharpie again, gotta trust your Sharpie, and cut out a template for the window hole out of cardboard. So we'll show you guys that next, and we're gonna start placing it in the van and figuring out the placement of where the window is going to go and making sure that looks good, and then we can start to prep the hole.
Okay, so we didn't initially know that we were going to put a window back here, so we had to remove some rattle trap where we initially put it. Here we traced to pretty much see what the cut line's going to be for the window. So we're really not too focused on this because we're just going to be cutting this out and throwing that piece of metal away. But what we had to do is heat it up using a heat gun and a paint scraper, and just peel it back, scrape it away, and this is what it looks like. And it looks like where we're cutting, it'll be just fine, but it would have been a lot easier if we knew we were initially gonna put this window here.
So Allison and I like to do a lot of preparation before we start a project like this, especially when we're gonna be cutting a big hole in the side of the van. But we were just a little confused when we got these parts. We had thought that we were going to be screwing into this spacer ring that we made and maybe through the sheet metal of the van to seal this up. But that's not the case. And a quick call over to Jamie at RB Components, and just to give them a shout out, RB Components is super helpful on the phone. I think they were working on 4 vans while they were there that day, and they had no problem taking like plenty of time to talk with me on the phone. I sent them an email with some pictures to make sure that I was doing it right, and in fact we were. I mean, there's really only one way this can go on. It just seemed a little bit confusing to me. So this is the trim ring. Sorry, this is not the trim ring. This is the clamp ring. So this is what's going to press and clamp the window to the inside of the van. And what this does is it goes on exactly the way it looks. It kind of, once the window gets installed into the van and is sticking through, this is the part that'll be inside the van. Obviously the window part will be outside the van. So this will be the inside. So looking at it from the inside, we will have our spacer ring that we made up against the sheet metal of the van right here. So there's our spacer ring that we made. And then the clamp ring goes right on top of that. And really, what was a little weird to us is that the screws go right into this little piece of the window here. So we'll be putting all these screws in, and they screw right into this open little line here in the window. So the screws go right into that, and that was a little confusing for us, and maybe we can get some better close-ups and stuff and show you guys that too with some pictures, but that's exactly how it works. We were just a little confused with that, so we called them up and they were super helpful, and we're pretty ready to go now. So we're just gonna get our template into the van right now and start planning where the window's gonna be. All right, so we're in the van now, and we've got our spacer ring that we made and our template out of cardboard. I don't know if I showed you guys the template yet, but I'm pretty proud of this template out of cardboard. I think this took me longer than the spacer ring did because I kept screwing up the cut with the cardboard, because you can't cut this with a saw. It was like a razor knife, and I just kept screwing it up, and I wanted it to be pretty perfect because I'm a little anal about those things. But here's the cardboard template. So we don't really need this right now. We're using the spacer ring taped up there, but this is what we're going to use on the outside of the van after we mark interior. We're gonna bring this to the outside and mark the hole, and we're gonna cut from the outside with the jigsaw. So just wanted to show you guys that. But right now we got the spacer ring that we made up, and honestly, it's a great idea to make the spacer ring. RB Components recommends it. It's just taking up a little bit more space than the sheet metal is thick in order to help that clamp ring really secure the window to the van. So here's the spacer ring. So this is where our window's gonna be. We already marked out, like Allison showed you, where the cut line was gonna be, straight through here. So we removed as much of the rattle trap glue as we could. And that's what we come up with. So we're at the stages now where there's that saying, measure twice, cut once, when it comes to cutting holes in this brand new van, like we did with the Max van. I measure like 10 times and cut once. That's just to be extra sure, because I don't want to screw this up. But the guys at RB Components are pretty funny. Like, dude, it's good, trust yourself, just make the template and cut the hole, put the window in, it'll be done in a day. So I think when I called them yesterday, they said they were doing 4 windows in the next like couple hours. So anyway, so here it is. So what we're doing now is transferring the measurements that we're getting from here to where the window's going to be, top, bottom, and sides, to the outside to kind of visualize where that's going to be. We want to make sure we come far enough down from the little indentation that's for the window on the outside, these big window cutouts. We want to come far enough down from that so that we make sure the jigsaw sits squarely on the van, because that's going to give us the best cut. We don't want to get any close to any obstacles on this outside of the van. We want to have a nice clean cut with the jigsaw. So what we're doing now is just kind of measuring where that indentation is on the outside of the van, which is just slightly above that point, to where the window starts. So it's about 2 3/4 to 3 inches, and accounting for this little bit of sheet metal here, we're gonna call it like about 3 inches. It might be a little less. And then from the rear of the van, and we can see this same indentation on the outside. That's how we're comparing and transferring these measurements to the outside. We're at about 8.5 to 9 inches. To the bottom of it, we said we got about a foot, and we got 12.5 inches. So when we go outside, we're gonna transfer those measurements to the outside of the van. I got front here, we got 4.5. So 3.5, 1.5 feet, well, 12.5. 4.5 and 8.5. And we're gonna go outside, transfer those measurements to the outside of the van and make sure we have a nice clear area where we're gonna cut with the jigsaw. So when we transfer those measurements to the outside of the van, this is kind of what we get. This is just a rough estimate right now. We're gonna get a perfect transfer to the outside of the van. But when we get our 3 inches down from that indentation that we measured on the inside to our 12.5 inches to our 8.5 inches, this is what the window is going to look like on the outside of the van here. So I think we're pretty happy with that. We're still going to get the exact measurements and the way we do that, and we'll show you how to do that from the inside. We got that tip from Ken E-Tube, I think he goes by. I think his name is Ken, and it's Kenetube. And I like the way that he transferred the template to the outside, and we'll show you how to do that. So thanks for that tip, Ken. And yeah, just kind of measuring 7 times like we said, and just like double checking everything, checking each other's measurements, and we're both doing it just to make sure we get this in the right place. So Allison and I have done all our measurements 7 or 8 times. I don't know how many times we did it. I don't think we even know the number, but we've come up with the fact that we're in the right place. Everything looks really good for us. We're going to start to cut off these little support beams that are in the window areas here, and we're going to be cutting at the top here and cutting on this line at the bottom, which is where our spacer ring is going to be. So we're using our angle grinder. Another disclaimer, just be very safe when using any of these power tools. Eye protection, hand protection, and just stay clear of everything. Another apologies, we borrowed this from a friend and there is no safety shield on it, so that's why there isn't. Construction workers these days, right? Trevor knows. They don't need safeties. So anyway, we're gonna be cutting this off right here along this line and then cutting again down here on this line. And you want to be very careful to only cut the support beam, because if we were to cut past the support beam through the skin of the van, that's bigger than the window hole is going to be. Remember, this is for the spacer ring, and the spacer ring is 1 inch thick, so the window actual hole that's going to go through the van is 1 inch above this line and 1 inch below this line. So if we cut through the skin of the van here, the window's not going to fit in the hole. It's going to be too big, and we're going to wind up putting a big window in here, which we don't want. We only want the little window. That's what we're doing. That's what we bought. So we're going to get started on that. Just be careful using your power tools, and yeah, get through it. So another tip that we got from our buddy Ken E-Tube on YouTube is to cut like a little notch in the bottom here, which I didn't exactly get right, but maybe I'll get it right in the next one, so that you don't, because this piece of this support beam is actually like touching, besides the little bit of adhesive that's behind it and rubber or whatever that is, it's like adhesive, it's actually really close to the skin of the van. So I didn't want to cut that, which is right here. So if you get like a couple of little notch in there, you can wiggle it free. So using like a heat gun again and the putty knife behind there, we were able to cut this off and then just start wiggling until we get it off, because I don't want to get too close to the skin of the van. So I might do another little cut here just to finish off that, but I think removing it and getting it a little bit away from the van is a good way to go. Thanks, Ken. So my first time with an angle grinder went really well. So we got our lines cut straight across the top here, these 2 support beams, and then we cut these 2 out, which you saw a little bit in the videos going on. And we did cut a notch so we didn't have to get too close to the exterior skin of the van. And once we cut that notch, we were able to wiggle it free as we slowly cut a little bit more with the angle grinder. Remember, you don't want to touch the skin here. The actual hole is gonna be from here to here. So if you hit the skin of the van here and here, you'd make way too big of a hole and wind up with a really big window. So what we're doing next is, just with a little razor blade, took it out of a razor knife and just trimming this sealant on, or adhesive on, or whatever you want to call it. And this comes off like butter. So just trimming this right off. And we don't need to trim all of this off, just around the cut line, but it's easy to come off in one big piece. So I'm just getting rid of it, and it only takes a minute. There we have it. Just get a little trim down here. And there it is. We're gonna repeat that again, and then we're pretty much gonna get prepped for the jigsaw. All right, so we removed all those rubber adhesive pieces off behind the supports where they were. And now we taped our spacer ring back up. So now we're taped into the exact place this is gonna be, and because we cut out the ribs, the structural pieces here, it can lay flush up against the van, and now we can get a true fit. So this all fits really well. First thing we did was test it, make sure we're not getting in the way of anything. Considering this takes up less space than the others, this takes up less space than the spacer ring, just making sure we're not bumping into anything, and we should be totally fine there. That's how this is gonna mount to the window. Once we cut the hole, the window will come through and it will screw into this. So that looks good. The next step really is to put on our template. So we're gonna shove our template in here because it's a tight fit. It's exactly the size of the window. We're gonna shove our template in here, and we're gonna tape that up really well. Then what we're gonna do is drill a couple of holes straight through the van. Now, mind you, we just measured again, just to make sure again, now that we're back in doing this. We're gonna drill a hole here and a hole here. And then what that's gonna allow us to do is match those two holes up with this template on the outside of the van in exactly the same orientation. Just picture it outside the van, put it back over those two holes, and that's our cut line. Then we tape this on the outside of the van, cut that hole, and we should be good to go. It sounds pretty easy. It actually is pretty easy, but for your first time, it's a little nerve-wracking, but gotta trust yourself. This is exactly where we want it to be. We measured inside, outside a bunch of times. This is where it needs to be, and we're doing it right. So we're just gonna move forward with that. We'll show you guys the drilling process and what it looks like on the outside when we get there. All right, so this is the moment of truth. We've got the template taped up there, the spacer ring taped up there. We've measured, I don't even know how many times, like I told you a bunch of times. And we're gonna drill two holes through here. One's gonna be just somewhere around here, it doesn't have to be exact. And then we're gonna do another one over here. And then what that's gonna do is allow us to match those two holes up on the outside and line up the template where it's supposed to be on the outside so we could mark it off and cut it. So I'm gonna drill this first hole through the skin of the van. That's it, there's a hole on the outside of our van now. Now I'm gonna do the other one and we'll show you what it looks like on the outside. So now that we made those two holes going through from the inside of the van to the outside, we keep the template in the exact same orientation. We got this tip from Ken YouTube too. Thanks, Ken, and it's a good tip. We'll line this up, and what we're gonna do is just line this up exactly with those two holes again by putting the drill bits right back in those holes. So I have two different size drill bits that I use. One's just slightly a little bigger so I can fit them back in. And when I find the other one, I'll get it in. I'll put this one through here. So that ensures that we're lined up with the two holes we drilled from the inside to the outside, and that our template is in the right place. And now we'll make sure we're level here, which it looks pretty good to the eye. And we'll tape this on, mark this with a Sharpie, and cut the damn hole in the van. Okay, so we got the hole traced on the outside. Just gonna tape around the exterior of that, and we should be ready to cut. But a bunch of people have recommended that you kind of cover up the bottom of where you're gonna be cutting. Should have probably done that before we used the angle grinder. You just wanna try to avoid getting all the metal shavings down on the bottom of the van and just like sitting there, because those could rust over time because they're just exposed metal. All this other exposed metal we're gonna cover with rust-oleum, but those little pieces down there we're not gonna be able to do. So just covering that up for now. Gonna go put some tape around the outside to protect the outside of the van from the plate on the jigsaw. The paint that we're not gonna be removing, we wanna protect that. so it's not all scratched up around the window. And then we'll be ready to cut. We'll show you guys that.
Hey, Matilda. Matilda, what's Billy doing up there?
Always dog sitting while we're doing work. Always dog sitting.
And look, we got Wager.
Yeah.
Good boy.
To get the drill bit, to get the jigsaw blade in, you gotta drill a bigger hole. All right, so we got the cut line all drawn after the template, and we painted the exterior of that cut line to protect ourselves from the plate here on the jigsaw. We don't want this to scratch the paint that's gonna be on the outside of the window, because that's gonna be exposed and you're gonna see it. So that's gonna protect us. We're gonna try and be easy on that. That should keep us pretty protected throughout the whole time. Yeah. So that's all set. Drill the bigger hole to get the jigsaw blade into the van now, so we can get started on the cut. And gonna get going. So here we go. All right, everybody, so we cut the hole. As you can see, you're inside the van, I'm outside the van, Allison's inside the van. It went really well, really smooth, really easy. If you follow those steps and then, follow those steps, be really careful, wear all your safety gear, and it comes out pretty well. So moment of truth, here's the window. There's the hole, let's check it out. It fits! That's it, perfect, exactly how we wanted it. Looks good. All right, really cool. Super happy we don't have to trim anything. At this point, we're gonna cover up all the raw metal with rust-oleum to protect it from rust over the years. You don't wanna leave any raw metal, just like we did with the fan. Anything painted over is okay. Once you cut it, you have some metal exposed, you wanna cover that with some paint. So we'll get on that next.
All right, so we have some exposed metal, which means we need to cover it up. We don't want it to rust over time. So we have some rust-oleum here. We're gonna do a couple coats throughout the next couple hours, and then we'll be able to put the window in later tonight.
All right, so the rust-oleum has dried fairly quickly. Alice and I were pretty surprised. We kind of expected to come out and check it out and maybe have to do it tomorrow, but it's been so hot and dry here. We left it in the shade, but it's dry, not tacky at all. So we're gonna go ahead and put the window in. Next steps are just to put the window in. So what we're gonna do is we got the window here. We're gonna line this right on this edge inside here around the whole strip in here with butyl tape. We'll show you guys that in a minute. And then that goes into the window frame that we cut, the hole. On the inside then goes our spacer ring that we made. Sheet metal will be in between here. And then goes the clamp ring that came with the window from RB Components. At which point, which we showed you, we will screw it in with the screws provided from RB Components right into this slot in the window here. So that's where the screws are gonna go. So if you can see that little slot, we're gonna put the screws through the clamp ring, tighten that down, not too snug, but nice and snug, not too tight. And that will force some of the butyl tape on the outside to ooze out, but we've been told to let that kind of settle for about 48 hours, especially if it's gonna be in the sun or hot. A lot will continue to ooze out, so we're not gonna trim that until halfway through the week this week. We're not really taking the van anywhere, so we let it sit and settle. That'll be it. We'll show you guys putting on the butyl tape in just a sec. So, like we said, the next step is to get the butyl tape on. So we just kind of wipe the whole surface of the window, make sure it's nice and clean. And then we're just gonna place the butyl tape in here on that, just inside that little beveled edge of the window there. And this is what's gonna seal it out. Seal out all the moisture. So we're gonna work our way around the whole window, just continuing this. And try not to stretch it too much. I want a good amount on there. It's fine to have extra, it will ooze out, and we will trim it in a couple of days when it settles. And that's it. We're gonna work our way around the whole window. We'll show you the final thing when we're done. All right, so we got the butyl tape on. If you wanna take a look, basically we're just trying to get inside this lip around the whole exterior edge, and a little bit of extra is fine. It's not exactly the right width of the windowsill or whatever you wanna call it, trim. But some's gonna ooze out anyway once we press it and compress it onto the van with the clamp ring and tighten it down. So that's fine. So now, next step is we're supposed to mist the metal that this touches. It's gonna help the butyl tape seal a little bit. So we're gonna mist it with some water and press it on there and get these parts on and be done. Almost there. So right before applying the window with the butyl tape on it, we're just gonna spritz this. Been told to just kind of spritz around here. We cleaned it a little bit first, and then we're just gonna give a little spritz with water, and we're gonna put the window in. Window's going in. So I'm gonna give it a little press, and then Allison's gonna stop recording and go inside and press up against the inside for me. But that's fitting pretty nice.
Okay, and next up is the clamp ring. Put it right there with the gap at the bottom. Looks good, ready for some screws. Okay, the window's in. We're really excited. The screws went in really easily, so we were pretty nervous, but this process wasn't that bad. It was pretty easy, so really glad to be done for the day.
Here's a look at the finished product here on the outside. We love it. It's looking great. It sits really flush mounted there. It's really tight fit. It's perfect. You definitely need the spacer ring. That's what enables this to be such a tight fit. The sheet metal is just not thick enough for the gap that they made this window for. So yeah, use the spacer ring, do what you gotta do. We're starting to get some butyl tape oozing out there, but RB Components recommends we wait about 48 hours for the trim that, especially because this will be sitting out in the sun, getting a little hot, still continuing to compress and oozing out. So we'll trim all that when we get done. But yeah, there it is. And we love it. I think it looks great. It really breaks up all the white too. All right, so the window's done. We're glad you guys watched the whole video. Thanks for joining us. Reflections on the process, I mean, I think it was pretty easy. I mean, we were obviously nervous. This was Allison's first time cutting a hole in the van. She wasn't here for the Max fan. She was watching it online as I was doing it, but what do you think? Pretty easy?
Pretty easy, yep. Yeah. Definitely recommend try it on your own. Everybody could do it.
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, like we said at the beginning, we're not professionals at this. We're just DIYers, gathering a bunch of information from a bunch of different sources online. Call the people that you buy the products from. RB Components was super helpful. Ask some questions on our YouTube video and everyone else's YouTube video. Basically, we just did a lot of research, prepared for this, planned for it, bought all the proper tools, wore all the proper protection, make sure you don't get hurt. Do this at your own risk. Like we said, we're not professionals. If you know a better way to do things, do it that way. Ask a professional if you need help, and learn how to use these tools by all means before you go ahead and cut a hole in your van. Our project was we built a workbench, which if you've been following along, you might have seen. We built a workbench to practice with our tools and get used to building things and cutting things, especially before we got into this project. And moving into this, we also did the fan before we did this hole, so felt pretty comfortable, but I'd say I was just about as nervous when we started this as I was when we did the fan. So I don't think it gets any better when you're cutting a hole in your vehicle. So, but all in all, the process went really well. We're gonna wait about 48 hours, like we said, to get the butyl tape to ooze out a little bit more, and we'll trim that. But highly recommend it. If you guys are gonna do this, go for it. RB Components was super helpful. This window is great. We love it. Can't wait to camp in the van with this little extra bit of circulation and ventilation in the back, and it's gonna be great. So thanks a lot for joining us. Yep,
leave us a comment if you have any questions, and we'd be happy to answer anything.
Yeah, and feel free to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you guys liked the video. We hope to see you guys more, and we hope you'll join us for more videos. Thanks.
Bye.